Well, it's May 6, 2011. Calvin Castine, Gordon Little with cameras here in what would otherwise be a to be out and about taking pictures of South Pittsburgh. Damage to property and to people and to pets, not all over the past. Is in the first week of May. Collaboration with snow melt in the Adirondack Mountains and on the Vermont side, also in the Green Mountains of Vermont, has caused tremendous grief for people along all the rivers that feed into Lake Champlain, the rivers in the high peaks of the Adirondacks, the rivers in St. Lawrence and Franklin County, the rivers here in Clinton County and across the lake. It's just been a horrendous big problem for so many people. And as we're doing this, it's impossible to assess the total damage. State officials came to the area yesterday, which would have been May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, and looked at some of the devastation to go back and tell Governor Cuomo what problems we have in the North Country and that we desperately need help. We've learned a lot of lessons while watching this happen, me especially, because my house is situated about 3 feet from the Saranac River in Morrisonville. So we've watched the river rise and fall many times over the years. This time we thought we might escape, and we did. And then guess what, folks? It rained again. So the river right now is just about as high as it's been in a very, very long time. And I might point out that we're going to spend quite a bit of mileage and time today with Calvin's hometown cable camera, traveling around some of the real trouble spots in the North Country to let our viewers know just what happened here in April and early May in 2011. It's a fabulous spot. Condition. We've been here when the waters were lower. There have been fabulous, and I use that term carefully, fabulous because they engender legend, flooding down through the years. Back in the 1940s, the one trails here in Los Angeles were flooded. It's been flooded again in the 1990s, and they had to move the trails across the highway, and Calvin and I had a chance to look at it. Picturesque spot to start our video chronicle here today, so that you could see the difference between other times when you might have traveled across this bridge. Before we go much farther, I want to invite those people who've been taking wonderful video to share it with Calvin Castine and Hometown Cable on the Ridge Road in Champlain, because on his website and our various websites, including HometownCableNetwork.com and Plattsburgh.com, we want people to know who we are and what we have going for us here in the North Country. So please contact Calvin if you have any video at all, regardless of what it is, because chances are, if you live in a spot that's under 4 or 5 feet of water right now, we might not make it there, even though I have my big high truck today. We're going to try to hit lots of spots, though. I hope you enjoy watching this program, and I hope you get your kids and grandpa around the television, because this is something you've never seen before. The lake is several feet higher than it's ever been in history, since way back in the early 1800s. So stay tuned for the chronicle of the floods of 2011. Well, we moved to a slightly different venue a couple of miles down the road, and this is the Port Kent Ferry Dock. Very historic location down here on Lake Champlain. I want to explain to people that we're making a video tour of the flooded areas around Lake Champlain, its tributaries, the rivers that come into Lake Champlain, because in April and May of 2011, that's where we are on the 6th day of May, people are just trying to recover trying to recoup the losses and trying to take a deep breath and say, how can we ever get through this? For those of you who haven't lived around Lake Champlain in a long time, I'm sure you'll be amazed to see this. One-time residents might remember Kanata Lodge, which was down over my left shoulder down here under the trees where you can't see it, and it was crushed by floods back in the late 1990s. This is the long and beautiful ferry ride from Port Kent that ends right up at the docks in Burlington across the lake, just a fur piece over there to the right-hand side. As you might guess, much of those parking lots, the offices for Lake Champlain Transportation Company and others are underwater on the far side of Lake Champlain, and you can see what problems they're going to have here when the lake goes down at the Port Kent ferry dock, because there's large parking lots here. The road is now closed. There are pylons and large barrels down there. In case I didn't mention it to you before, Lake Champlain, at this point in time in early May 2011, is about 3 feet above flood stage. And to some people, that may not sound like a lot. This normally placid lake is a little over 98 feet, 99 feet. We have seen it over 100 feet in the past, but not for a long time. And Rouse's Point, I checked before we came here today, the lake level was 102.98. They expect it to be 103.2 by Saturday. That's tomorrow morning. And as I mentioned earlier in the segment, we have received about 9 inches of rain since April 1st. The old record was set way back in 1869, 102.1 inch. So things are pretty bad. The reason Calvin's hometown cable camera and this microphone with me holding it haven't been out chronicling this damage beforehand is because the weather was really testy. This is the first day of sunshine on the 6th day of May that we've seen in really in a couple of weeks, right, Calvin? Something like that. It's been a long time, 11 or 12 days at least. And we planned to come out Wednesday. That weather was horrible. We planned to come out yesterday, which was Thursday. That weather was horrible with light rain and heavy rain mixed throughout the day. So Calvin picked this morning. He's a weather watcher, and we knew that Friday morning was going to be good. We've got a stiff breeze, I would say 10 or 12 miles per hour today. And wind has a great deal to do with flooding on Lake Champlain. The south wind is horrendous because it pushes all this extra water toward the north and just floods everything. The south wind and north wind are both raised cane with people around Cumberland Head, for example. But there are places away from Lake Champlain that are affected as well. We have no idea how many millions of dollars worth of damage has been caused. A lot of my friends, and I'll bet a lot of your friends, have been affected by this, maybe just now getting to their camps, their summer camps around Lake Champlain on Cumberland Head, and they're walking away, shaking their heads because their docks, their seawalls, their walkways, their stairways, their cement abutments are completely and utterly gone. So we'll be talking about the floods of 2011 for a long, long time. And that's the way it is here at Port Kent, south of Plattsburgh. We've moved the trusty hometown cable cameras again. Calvin Castine and Gordy Little for Hometown Cable in our little corner doing a chronicle documentary on the massive floods of 2011. And we've stopped here at the Ausable Point campsite, a very popular state camping facility for many, many years here in the North Country. Canadian visitors, others from out of town, love to come down here and camp on Lake Champlain. The entrance road is closed. As a matter of fact, we walked in about 1,000 feet just to show you, when we say the road is closed, to show you exactly what we mean. It's all lake now on both sides of this little bridge. The wooded and marshy areas are flooded. The roads look like they have several feet of water over them. We can only imagine, and we certainly aren't going to try to get down there today to show you, but we can only imagine, excuse me, what the state campsites look like. New York State and every other state in the Union is having tremendous troubles trying to make ends meet financially. So the fiscal problems that they'll face trying to get these state campsites open is incredible. My family and I love to camp along the St. Lawrence River at Coles Creek between Messina and Waddington. We have no idea how high the St. Lawrence River is running right now. But we know about the Racket River, we know about the Saranac River, we know about the Ausable River and the Chazy Rivers and all the other rivers around the North Country, including the Grass River near Messina, and we know that they have to be at historic levels now. Before we started the camera this time, I said to Calvin, we'll never see this again. And he said, we certainly hope not. And that was, I hope, a prophetic statement. We hope never to see this kind of devastation again. Whether or not this campsite will ever get open this summer, I don't know. I do know that a lot of people are willing to volunteer, and they're willing to hire state people to come down here and try. And before I forget it, we'll go downtown and show you around Plattsburgh and what's been happening down there. Before I forget it, I want to thank all the many, many volunteers, including Plattsburgh State students, who donated their strong backs in helping to fill sandbags. All the volunteer units, all the various emergency units, from fire departments to police departments to state police and all the way down the line, and of course the American Red Cross, which had to actually open a couple of shelters in the North Country, one of them down at the Crate Center, and we'll go down there later today. So, yes, you're seeing something that is making history, even though today gives us a little sunshine. It belies the fact that it's been a terrible couple of weeks for thousands upon thousands of people in the North Country. And that's it from Ausable Point campsites. Well, we stopped along Route 9 for the famous and historic Valcour Education Center, the historic center here, where they have conference rooms, weddings, receptions. Our hometown cable cameras have been here several times before to commemorate the Battle of Valcour. I had a granddaughter that was married inside this Valcour Conference Center boathouse. Our cameras today can see a very sad sight through the windows, and it's not just a reflection. It's water inside, folks. I mean, we've stood here on a spit of land that goes out far beyond the docks over on the right-hand side to watch cannons being fired, to do interviews with people who are local historians, etc. So these historic buildings are completely flooded down here, this entire center, which is really quite beautiful inside, with a complete kitchen, complete dining area for several hundred people. High-level conferences have been held here for years and years and years. And today, we knew what we were going to see when we drove down in with our truck. And here it is. Besides all the other things you see, Calvin and I have noticed a lot of things floating in Lake Champlain. A lot of the sandy beaches along the side of Route 9 south of Plattsburgh are washed out. You can see the sand muddying the water. You can see all the various logs and stuff which have all floated up right here. But it points out something else that I think is vital to mention, and that is that Lake Champlain is not a safe place to be for boaters now, unless you're in some kind of an emergency vehicle, because there are a lot of things floating partially under the water and above the water. So if you were traveling on the lake at this time of year, you would have to use extreme caution. Something else that affects me, Calvin and I both pay attention to the news media, having been involved in the media, both of us, for so many years. And there have been no deaths or serious injuries connected with this flooding, have there, Calvin, that I've heard of? And we thank the good Lord above, and anybody else, including all the saints who might be smiling down on us today for that fact. People here are resilient. They're very, very strong people. They will rebuild all this area, just like the folks in Japan have been trying to do after their devastating earthquakes and tsunami. But it's not easy. And if there is a possibility of anybody watching this program of helping a neighbor, this will be a good opportunity for you to watch it. Look at this site at the Valcour Boathouse south of Plattsburgh, and go and ask a neighbor if there's anything you can do to help them restore what they've lost. This is utter devastation. The inside of this building, who knows what might have to be replaced before it's opened again in the future. And that's the way it is at the Valcour Education Center. Well, there's an icon, historic Valcour Lighthouse, which has shown up in pictures, still pictures, calendars, videos, and many other places. And thanks to a lot of volunteer efforts by our dear friends, it's been open for tours for a while. We're at what they call the Peru Dock, the state launching site, a place where our hometown cable camera listeners have joined us many times. If we jump on a pontoon boat with John Rock or Roger Harwood or one of the guys and head out to Crab Island for our historic and sometimes monumental tours during the Battle of Plattsburgh time. We walked out on this dock, something we're not going to try today for fear of going way over our short boots. But this is an example of what's happened to this Lake Champlain, which is normally a lot nicer than it's been over the last couple of weeks. And Calvin reminded me to point out that Lake Champlain flows north into the Richelieu River and up into Canada. So that's why it's such a huge problem when we have strong south winds at any time in the summertime. But when the lake is high, higher than it's ever been in history, well over 100 feet, it causes so much grief for people around the northern shores of Lake Champlain. So in lieu of you getting in the car and risking your life and limb to go around and see what this flooding is all about, Calvin and Castine and I decided to take the big truck of mine with high clearance and get out to places and get some shots that I hope you'll view into the future, and you'll be able to watch this program on Hometown Cable Network. .com and Plattsburgh.com as well as on your local cable systems. And again, I want to remind people that if you have some special shots or video, please try to share them with Calvin, and you'll be able to watch those on television as well. And that's the way it is at the Peru Dock. It's a funny thing. We were driving north from south of Plattsburgh on Route 9, and my truck just turned in here. I don't know how it managed to do that. Just a coincidence. Carolyn Kane, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Lovely printing the wonderful Lake Champlain weekly newspaper. Have you got your flood issue all set to go?
We're working on it. We've got a lot of material to go through.
Now, we stopped here for a lot of reasons. First of all, we like you.
Well, thank you. We like you too.
And secondly, we know you live across the border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where exactly do you live?
Just roughly north of Swanton, Vermont, about 5 miles from the border in the village of Clarenceville.
Well, we're happy that you can get there from here.
Well, there's just one rough spot along the 202, but that's been reinforced with gravel to bring it up to grade above the water. But, you know, who knows what it's going to be like next week.
Well, we were slowed down, actually slowed to a stop at a construction area with a lot of state DOT vehicles, big clams and so on, working right along the lake shore, less than a mile or two away south of here. So there are places that are a little bit tenuous right now.
Well, I hear this storm system is affecting as far south as Arkansas, so flooding everywhere. Very unpredictable water supply.
You're a news hound, I'm a news hound, mm-hmm. Calvin's a news hound. So we have been paying attention. As we're recording this on May 6, 2011, mm-hmm. we've been watching with horror the weather patterns in the United States, mostly from west to east and the Midwest and eastward over the last month or so. And it's these poor people down south. I mean, we're bad off here, but then you talk about literally hundreds of tornadoes devastating several states at one time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have a large family scattered all over the United States, and we've all had close encounters with tornadoes or flooding. And I don't think you can escape it. You can go to the West Coast, and then you have to worry about earthquakes.
There's so many things to worry about. Right now, it's severe drought.
I'll take the
Severe droughts and wildfires in Texas as we speak right now, as we have relatives there. We had a granddaughter and her whole family coming through those tornadoes, snaking their way from Myrtle Beach through North Carolina a couple of weeks ago. And of course, we were on our knees all day long saying, when will it end?
You can't get away from it.
The worst thing that happened to them along the way was they stopped to eat dinner and the lights went out just as they were served.
Wow.
And I said, if that's the worst thing that happens to you, somebody up there is watching over. So what have you seen? Have you seen some bad stuff?
Well, on the Canadian side, of course, that the Richelieu River is the main drainage pipe for Lake Champlain.
Yes, it all goes right up your way.
That's right, on its way to the St. Lawrence. And so when you have more coming in than it can go out, you have these rising water levels. Parts of Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu are badly flooded. Saint Paul de l'Île-aux-Noix, very close to the border, is a disaster area. The Canadian military has been called in to help shore up flood-prone areas. But all along the Richelieu, there's people are pretty much experiencing the same kind of flooding that people in low-lying areas are experiencing here.
People who watch this program have seen Calvin and I as we make our way to one of our favorite places on earth, and that is St. Anne's Shrine on Isle La Motte. We've done historical tours around that beautiful little community. And you were talking a few minutes ago before Calvin pushed that on button about how it's virtually inaccessible.
Yeah, I've been hearing reports that it's underwater. A large part of the island is underwater. Route 2 is endangered. One of our employees just went over to Vermont via the ferry, and she said, had I known how bad it was, I wouldn't have tried. So if you're contemplating taking that route, be sure to check with VTrans, the Vermont Department of Transportation, to see if the roads are still open.
I have a good friend who's been a captain for the Lake Champlain Transportation Company on the ferry boats for many, many years. And you ask him how it's been, and he doesn't even want to talk about it. I mean, this taxes all your skills. Not only that, not only on the lake, but getting onto the ferry boat on both sides.
That's right. I'm hearing that they're having to shore up the ramps to get onto the ferry boats because those are inundated.
Of course, and you're up this way and then back down. And we stopped at Port Kent at the ferry this morning. The entire complex underwater.
Wow. Needless to say, are the ferries running?
No, there won't be any. The sign says opening June, and I think that may be a little optimistic. And we stopped at the Valcourt Conference Center, and we looked down at the boathouse, and you can see water lapping the sides inside the boathouse. So everything is destroyed inside the boathouse. The whole thing is under several feet of water. And so those are sad things.
Yeah, and I believe water levels are still rising.
Yes,
the last report I heard, they may not begin to recede until the end of the month because of the meltwater is still coming out of the Adirondacks and the Green Mountains. So
Clinton County Emergency Preparedness Director Eric Day was here with state officials and other local dignitaries, political figures, if you will, yesterday, so that would have been May 5th. And he said, this is not, we may get some sunshine, and we started beautiful sunshine, and now that's a little bit iffy in the sky. But Eric Day warned people that this is not going to happen overnight. It's days, weeks, and perhaps even months before this lake begins to get back to normal. And whatever normal is these days.
And of course, the repercussions are going to be felt for a year because farmers are unable to get in and plant their fields.
That's the point we haven't even mentioned yet. Think about it.
Yeah, the small grain crop for Quebec at least has been drastically revised downward because if you don't have your small grains in by this time of year, you've virtually missed the season.
And here we are complaining about the price of groceries. And the poor farmers can't even get in the fields to plow, let alone plant.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we'll be feeling it at the grocery stores 4 or 5 months from now.
We're feeling it at the gas stations. We're feeling it. Carolyn, I didn't mean to put you on the spot today.
Well, thank you.
I actually didn't.
It's always a pleasure.
Didn't mind it, but it's always great to see you. Good luck with your wonderful newspaper.
Well, thank you very much.
And your traverse across the border back and forth. Be careful.
Well, and I wish everybody a dry season. I hope that the waters go down as fast as possible.
We do. Thanks so much, Carolyn.
Thank you, Gordy.
Well, once again, you're looking at another famous island, and that is Crab Island, and the monument we visited so many times across burgeoning Lake Champlain, if I might use that term. We're at a spot here near the big oil tanks that used to be south of Plattsburgh, not far from where we were just located at Studley Printing, just a little bit north of that, about 1,000 yards. And we came down to a spot where Bernie Bassett, Town of Plattsburgh supervisor, brought us on our windshield tour a while back, saying that he would like to see development down on this end of town. You can see some of the docking sites here. You can see how high the river is, far, far higher than it was last time we visited. We weren't the lake. I live on the river, so it's customary for me to call it a river. And when I'm up on the St. Lawrence, I call it the lake. But we had to drive over the railroad tracks and down here, and we understand that Amtrak did cease operations for a while they had to shore up the tracks, and they were running investigation yesterday and several tours up and down the tracks to make sure everything was stable. Tracks here are fine because they're quite a bit above the lake level, but the lake is exceedingly high right here. Just to give you an idea, we're stopping. For those people who just turned on their television set or computers, we're trying to stop at many locations, starting far south of Plattsburgh, working our way up toward the Canadian border to let people know what the floods are like in April and May in 2011, and that's the way it is, just south of Plattsburgh.
And we're looking across at Mount Mansfield, and the report there is that there's 4 feet of snow that has to melt and come down.
And we understand there's a lot coming down on our side as well in the future, so don't put your water wings away for a week or so. We thought we'd take a little off-road detour on the lake side of the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base to the old base marina, Sailors Beach, places where we have launched our little tours over to Crab Island on numerous occasions. All of that is underwater, as you can see, along with the building has water lapping up against it down here below. A lot of items floating up along the shore here make a horrible mess. Canada geese on Lake Champlain, and the ducks seem to be having a good day of it today, but we thought we'd take a little ride down here to let you know how high the water actually is, and to take a look right behind Calvin. The road is closed, so we didn't drive down here even with the truck, because there's a little dipsy doodle right there coming down the hill where it's caved in a great deal, and some big trees on the left-hand side have been cut down, and they're laying against the side of the wall that leads up from Lake Champlain. We're actually a good 15 or 20 feet above Lake Champlain here. But believe me, under normal conditions, that water level is way, way down from where it is here. And that's the story on this day of chronicling the floods of 2011. Well, we're at the Plattsburgh Boat Basin, known affectionately to many former local residents and those older folks like me as Dock and Coal. It's a whole new meaning to dry dock down here. These boats are not high and dry, my friends. Some of them had to be moved. A lot of them are underwater. The very popular night spot, the Naked Turtle, is right beyond where Calvin is pointing. However, there is no parking area there, of course, right now, so Naked Turtle customers are asked to turn left when they come in here and park here at the boat basin. You might remember when the Spirit of Plattsburgh was docked here for a short time. Of course, Frank Pabst and his wonderful Juniper was here for many, many years. The dock area is completely underwater, as you can easily tell. Matter of fact, we've covered a few pretty famous occasions here with VIPs from all over the place. Claire and Carl's had a subsidiary Michigan stand here for some time, and we had heard before the floods that they wouldn't be opening this year for various reasons. The old Claire and Carl's is still open on Route 9 south of town, but if they did pay the rent, they wouldn't be open today. Look at it down there. I'm laughing, but it's not at all a laughing matter. We try to find some humor in everything, but it's hard to find any humor down here today. This is the boat basin. I would imagine everything out into the water that you normally would see, the breakwater, is completely underwater. So we were stopping at Peru Dock for a while, and we saw two trucks there and 2 empty boat carriers. So somebody was out there fishing or doing something on Lake Champlain today, and we hope they were being safe. Again, this program is part of a chronicle we're doing, a documentary, if you will, of the floods of April and May of 2011. We've covered quite a long area so far today, and we're only back in the city of Plattsburgh, over Calvin's Shoulder, down that way, Cumberland Avenue. Part of it is closed. We hope to get down as far as Wilcox Dock to show you that is completely underwater. We were looking for a mayor, City of Plattsburgh Mayor Donnie Kasperzak, and his secretary said he was working somewhere on Margaret Street, I'm sure, talking to people and trying to figure out what they can do to save their property, their businesses, and their homes. We'll continue here. We're well within sight. This is the historic district of Plattsburgh, as you might know. In the distance over Calvin's left shoulder is the D&H Railroad Station that has a great deal of history. Across from that, the wonderful old hotel that was a standard here before it was chopped down to its normal size and became businesses later on. But McDonough Monument is not too far away. You can see County Government Center there. We live in a fine community. It normally doesn't have this much excitement, but today the excitement is flood, flood, flood. High waters of Lake Champlain, 3 feet above flood stage at historic highs, and we're hoping things will get better in the next few days and weeks. Stay with us. And there's a shot in downtown Plattsburgh of the Bridge Street Bridge, Lower Broad Street Lower Bridge Street in Plattsburgh. Historic place where some young people during the Battle of Plattsburgh held off the British, were commemorated 20 years later by Congress with beautiful inscribed rifles that are worth a lot of money. We're in downtown Plattsburgh, right next to, adjacent to McDonough Monument, across from Plattsburgh City Hall, looking at the railroad bridge and the very busy Saranac River as it comes past, a place that's familiar to people who visit here and local people who come here every 4th of July and Mayor's Cup and various other times to enjoy concerts, because the Lions Club band shell was down there somewhere underwater, right there, but it's gone far over the banks and there won't be any concerts there right now until this finally tones down just a little bit. The walk bridge and the railroad bridge are down that way. That's the end of the Saranac River, where it dumps into Lake Champlain, right near the Champlain Monument, diagonally across the road from the famous Kent DeLord House, and not very far from the actual scene of the Battle of Plattsburgh on September 11th, 1814. And that's the way it looks in downtown Plattsburgh. Yeah.
I'm a little surprised, Gordy, that the river is flowing this well here as it gets into the lake. With the lake at historic height, the water's moving pretty good here.
That's because there is such a volume of water, and it's coming from the mountains. And as you see it go past my place, you wonder how it can do that at such a tremendous speed. There are flat places up around Cadyville, and the Saranac is so docile you could walk in with children and kayak and canoe with no problem. But this time in the last week or so, it's actually been raging behind my house several feet above its normal flood stage. So that's why it's got an awful lot of pressure behind it heading into Lake Champlain, and that's why there's so much flooding along the shores of Lake Champlain, because we have other rivers doing the same thing. And it's right now it's not a pretty sight. Far in the distance you can see where we just were at Dock and Coal, right down there, way down over past the plant down at the end of Bridge Street and downtown where the boats are and where the Clarence Carls is underwater and so on. So you can get a very special view and not necessarily a beautiful sight. And we'll end this segment with a real nice view of the Eagle, which hasn't flown yet, on the top of McDonough Monument in downtown Plattsburgh. We ventured down Cumberland Avenue in Plattsburgh toward Georgia Pacific Mill. At times the road has been closed because of the lake level in the last 11 or 12 days. We're now at Wilcox Dock, which has a very rich history in this area. Many of our viewers are aware of that history, and I won't get into all of it now. Suffice to say, they've done a great job at rehabilitating the dock area. They've had some famous boats here. The Lois McClure was here, the Peck and Paw was here, and we've spent several times down here interviewing people for one reason or another. But this little park area, the dark area, the dock, the Peck and Paw was the tugboat, wasn't it? Was it? There was a tug.
Dave Peck and Paul was
Dave Peck and the big barge, yeah. And there was a smaller tugboat here as well.
Urger.
Oh, the Urger, you remembered that? Good, Calvin. Cody Little and Calvin Castine trying to chronicle the lake floods of 2011 here in the city of Plattsburgh right now. I see the ducks having a good time. But everything else down here is underwater. You can see over Calvin's shoulder on the left, workmen are trying to stabilize that area. And in the far distance, you can see many of the businesses, the motels, etc., along Route 9. And many of them do have water inside them right now. I mean, there have been pumps going round the clock. College people and various others down here helping out to fill sandbags. And several friends of ours have been keeping us abreast of the situation by sending video and photographs of the situation. But this is just one more place where rising waters in Lake Champlain to historic levels around April and May of 2011 have caused very, very serious problem for people who live and work along Lake Champlain.
Remind people about videos.
How many? Oh yes, remind people about videos. Calvin says if you do have videos, please get them to Calvin Castine at Hometown Cable on the Ridge Road in Champlain. He can put them on his cable channel. We can put them on our websites, because all of this will be in various segments and together in a long documentary to let people know what life was like along Lake Champlain and the rivers in 2011. So if you have any videos, no matter how bad you think they are, if they show some interesting flooding pictures, please get them to Calvin Castine at Hometown Cable, and you will be able to see them on TV and on the internet. Well, we're on North Margaret Street, as you can tell, and we're continuing our documentary, our chronicle, if you will, of the floods of 2011. The condos and apartments are on both sides of the street here. This is the former home of George Hubbell's Lake Champlain Pools. Now his property, and you see his sign that says Bridge Over Troubled Waters. We've seen that in the paper and on television a few times. They've done their best to try to build up the lakeside with sand bags and other things to keep the water out, but you got to remember we're being assailed on both sides with remnants of Scamotion Creek on the other side going all through the swampland and going into these condo areas, and we've talked to many people who live in these condos who have water. And on the other side of North Margaret Street as well, the condos that were built near where swampland is located, and people on their ground floors down deep have had water in their mattresses, and we heard them with their computers and clothing and various other things as well. So This North Margaret Street is closed to through traffic down here with police cars and emergency personnel on both sides to keep people out. Obviously, they don't want lots of people driving through deep water for various reasons. They're doing their best to stave off the problems, but meanwhile, on this 6th day of May 2011, the lake continues to rise, and we have no idea where the end might be. But we're trying to get it all on television for you on Hometown Cable to watch in future generations. And there, my friends, is one of the big problems, the transformer. We're still on North Margaret Street near Edgewater Estates. Large transformer, big pumps going constantly right here at the substation. Condos on both sides of the road, and of course McDonald's, Mickey D's. Not open, as you can easily imagine, because it's just not accessible. The water is down just north of here, and then it goes back up again, I'm sure, as we get up closer to the Scamotion Creek Bridge. Back in the olden days, there was quite a sizable community there. Scamotion Creek, a schoolhouse, and various businesses, restaurants, and now all of that is gone. The road has been changed within the last few years. Actually, the direction of the creek has changed a little bit over the last 100 years or so too. It was far different back during the days of the Battle of Plattsburgh, etc., etc. But we're here in 2011 on May 6th, showing you what life is like along Lake Champlain at the highest level it's ever been. Haven't seen Champy yet either.
Okay, we are rolling, Gordy. Okay, you can hold it down.
Yeah, that's all right. We're coming in from the north side on Margaret Street, going through water with a tiny dry spot in the middle, trying to come up to the north side of McDonald's where we showed you some video before. Looking at McSweeney's here, followed by the Chamber of Commerce, which was forced to move to another location in a building on Tom Miller Road on Boynton Avenue. And people are wandering around the streets, cars are stopped. News crews, of course, are here, but we're thrilled to be able to do a long program including just about all the information about flooding. There's somebody carrying a whole big bag of stuff over there. I don't know if that's one of the gals from the chamber trying to get some of the important papers out or not.
Oh, a looter.
Well, don't say that. Actually, the reason we had to wait on the other end of the road here for a while was because they sent several buses, school buses down here, and the word from the state police, the state trooper, was that they were evacuating over 100 people from Lakeside Apartments.
Scamotion's kind of big today, isn't it?
Scamotion Creek is big on both sides. The old Scamotion Crickers, as they used to call them, would be blown away if they could see what happened to their very quiet creek here. In the meantime, we're heading across I call it the new Scamotion Creek Bridge, although it's been here for a few years. They've done an amazing and wonderful job in widening the roadway. But it's, you see sandbags. Look to the left. You'll see sandbags everywhere. We'll get that after we turn around. Lots and lots and lots of people are out there trying to figure out what is going on. We saw cars parked actually underwater a few minutes ago. So we're gonna
keep going. I think you can go up a little bit further here.
We'll see how far we can go as we get here. Here's one of the first transit buses on both sides, as a matter of fact, with people trying to get their belongings.
People being rescued here from
people being rescued you know, I've never been totally displaced except from my house in Morrisonville when the ice jams forced the river through my cellar and down the driveway a few times.
Now, we were told we could go as far as McDonald's, so water's kind of rushing, but I think we ought to try it. What do you think?
Oh, I think
Doesn't
we'll
look
be
that deep
okay
in the cones.
going through here. We'll be very careful. These people are still living in these condos. And there we see big equipment on both sides of the road. People bring in their own equipment to try to get the work done. There's sump pumps going everywhere. This is the Baycare Center on the right-hand side. Familiar place to many people in town.
And guess we'll have to turn around somewhere here.
Yeah, maybe
right here. Maybe
we'll get up this way and park maybe, huh?
We were at McDonald's. We've got as far as McDonald's again, so we've covered the whole gamut.
Covered the waterfront, yep.
Here's what we're looking at. Obviously, normally you could drive in here, but not right now.
Not today, I don't think.
I don't know if we can back up here. It looks okay on my side.
Head back?
Yep.
Okay, I can do that.
We're going to keep the camera rolling. We're using Gordy's big gas guzzler. So, an invitation to anybody watching this who wants to help buy gas for our excursion today. Gordy and I aren't getting paid to do this. This figure it's our duty to chronicle this. But this is what Hometown Cable is all about, and we're looking for viewer support at all times.
This is the Golden Gate Motel. Yes, it's very important what Calvin says. We do our little corner, and Calvin does the many other things he does because we think it's important, especially on a day like today when lives are at stake, property is at stake, and these are historic days. Only come sometimes once in a lifetime, in this case once in many lifetimes, dating way back to the mid 1800s when records were being kept about the lake level of Lake Champlain. And here we are several feet above the record and traveling with my truck from south on Lake Champlain at various places. I don't know how many we visited, Calvin, but maybe 15 or 20 spots so far.
We had a dozen before we got to Margaret Street.
All right. So we had hoped to talk with Mayor Donnie Kasperzak from the city of Plattsburgh, but he was busy, as you can understand, and he's got official duties to perform.
The eye care center is still open. Our customers are able to get to it, but these buildings next to it here, these people are pretty much all being evacuated. I'm not sure if the upper stories are able to stay, if it's just the people on the bottom floor.
See people standing and sitting in their doorways, and the buses are here. That's what caused a small bottleneck earlier, and traffic wasn't being allowed through. Now these people, I don't know where they're going to be taken. I know the Crate Center has been used for evacuation, and we heard Jeannie Roberts from the Red Cross say that they had something like 50 people using it at one time. They've got the policemen are here with lists. You can imagine the logistics, Calvin, of trying to get these people, displaced people, put somewhere for the next few days. And you know, take a look here on the right-hand side by that bus. These people aren't going to be able to come back into their apartments for some time now.
If ever.
If ever. Because, you know...
They may come back to get belongings, but that'd be about it.
Yeah.
Are we being hollered at?
Taxi cabs trying to get by people. They need to leave the lane open. We have a police van down here. It's been a very busy police presence all the way through. State police on the perimeter and city police doing a great job. Many of the people.
Scott Beebe working.
They even got Scott Beebe working today. I haven't been saluted in a long time.
There's our sandbags you were talking about.
Oh my gosh, take a look at this. Take a look at this. Everywhere. And you know the worst part of it is, Calvin, it's coming in from all sides.
Well, yeah, with the creek backing up, the creek can't get into the lake because the lake is higher than the creek.
You can understand why the roadway has been closed to through traffic on both sides for some time, and you know, this stretches in a time period when finances for cities, towns, villages, municipalities of all kinds are stretched right to the limit. Now you're taking personnel, and of course you have to work them overtime. You got to pay for overtime, so things are not easy for anybody anywhere. And this is just a microcosm of what's been happening all through the center, all the way east in our nation.
Oh, Mississippi is just unbelievable.
Arkansas, you know, about 6 or 8 states. You look at these giant weather systems that I've never seen before, involving hundreds of tornadoes all at the same time. Living in those areas is just beyond what I can fathom. We say we're lucky to live in the North Country because we very rarely have any floods. Well, today's one of those days where we're living through a flood. You just look at McSweeney's over here, and look at, you know, the entrance to WPTZ Channel 5 and the old Moffat Road, the Latour Road here underwater.
Yeah.
Road is blocked right off.
Dominic's restaurant site here.
Yes, and that's gone, and we don't know if anything will ever replace it here, but so far the old truck's running, so I guess we made it down through and to the north end of where the road was blocked off.
Okay, we're now at the Cumberland Head campsite, they call it.
Yeah, Cumberland Bay campsites. Cumberland Head, Cumberland Bay. We got city campsites, we got state campsites.
We just passed the Crate Civic Center.
Great Civic Center that's being used as an emergency place for those people who have been taken out of their apartments. Look at all these picnic tables underwater. You know, most of these places are set to open up on Memorial Day weekend, and so there'll be a lot of work. And as I said before, the state budget, the way it is, whether they're going to have the money to get all this cleanup done, who knows? Look at this man-made or nature-made pond right here on the side of the road. Unbelievable. All those campsites are underwater, and they're far back from Lake Champlain. So this standing water is going to take an awful long time to leave. I think we'll probably like to go out the Lakeshore Road once we get here rather than the new road to the ferry. We'll just take a right-hand turn and see what we can see. Boy, look at this. Somebody had some construction work and they dug this whole thing out. What a mess, huh?
Yeah. We've seen a lot of this today, Gordy, where they're putting rocks alongside the road.
Yes, they're doing whatever they can. Look on the left side here. These camps are all flooded. Water's already come across the side. We got people, equipment everywhere trying to do what they can. Private people coming in here trying to save what they can. We've talked to so many people who own camps out here, and all their dock facilities, their stairways are completely destroyed. And in many cases, look at this, a brand new one here.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Romeo Trudeau area. Looks like it's a new building.
Yeah, you can see what they've been doing here, trying to save it. They've been working, trying to keep the lake away, and the lake is right here. If they hadn't done this, look at this mess. Unbelievable. Now this roadway was closed for a while, Calvin, before they could get this shored up. And it was difficult for people to get. They had to come the other way to get over to Champlain Park. And there was a great deal of flooding.
A lot of debris on the road.
And the debris is a big factor, as we've said before. So if you're driving at night anytime when things like this happen, be so careful. It's going to be very difficult for people to get their boats launched. People live along Lake Champlain on Cumberland Head because they love the lake and they love to use the lake. And these boat launching sites and these cranes and dollies are underwater. There's the entrance to Champlain Park on the left, one of the older communities, if you will, on Cumberland Head. And we're rolling again as we come close to the lakeside. You don't see any whitecaps or waves. We do have wind out there today of 5 or 10 miles per hour. We see where they've dropped various loads around the sides of the road because that's a worry. It's a worry that when you get a tremendous south wind that the actual roadway is going to be eroded.
Undermined
and eroded. So that we've seen some horrifying pictures in the newspapers and on television elsewhere, people around the area who were driving at night and just horrified to find that their cars were hanging over the road. This is a good view of Lake Champlain, which for the people who are uninitiated is like 120 miles long. So it holds a great volume of water all flowing north into the Richelieu and ultimately up into the St. Lawrence River. That's the process. But the process isn't always very neighborly. And you can see right here where they've dumped tons and tons of rock along the way.
Well, places like Cumberland Head and Point of Fair and Point of Rush, because of the southern flow, they've got a big southern exposure that they've been dug out by the water over the years, and that's where they stick out, is with that southern exposure. And with that south wind, that's a big problem.
It does the damage. We're traveling along the road, the old road around Cumberland Head. This is the road people used to have to take when they went to the ferry for years and years and years, until that beautiful new highway right through the center of Cumberland Head was finished some years back. And this is a product of a lot of work right here on the right hand side, as you can see through the windshield and out the window. They've just piled all this rock along the road to save it from literally washing away.
As you said, already stressed municipal budgets. It's a
terrible.
County, state, town, whatever. Budgets are already stressed, and all of a sudden they're going to put all this this effort into saving the property through here.
It's been a busy time, and now we're recording this again. If you just turned on your television or watching us on the internet on your computer, we're recording this on May 6th, 2011. And the problem started around the third week of April, when we had so much rain. We understand now that April finished, there was an official 9 inches of rain that fell during that 1 month, and that is at least 3 times the annual average. And so the lake level rose precariously and dangerously, and then we hoped it would be going down as the rain subsided. Then it continued to rain some more. It rained very hard on the 5th day of May. That would have been yesterday in real time. And so, the river, Saranac River behind my house in Morrisonville, for me is a good gauge. And it was right up to where it was before, but has dropped down several inches as of today. So there's no serious threat of flooding, at least in my house, as long as my regular sump pump and the backup sump pump continue to operate.
In addition to all that rain, Gordy, we also had a lot of snowmelt that was already causing the flooding problems.
As a matter of fact, the snowmelt continues in the mountains on both sides of Lake Champlain. You can see one ferry leaving. We're going to wait for one car to go by, and then we're going to turn head down toward the ferry dock so you can see just how difficult it is for cars even to get onto the ferry. They've had to build up asphalt ramps to try to get the roadways, the entranceway to the ferries at a reasonable height so cars don't hit bottom trying to get on. It's been very difficult. It's some of the ferry crossings can't get open, as you found out earlier today. We'll pull up here somewhere, take a look around. Well, this is the Cumberland Head Ferry. You can see where the lake level is and where the ferry is pulling in. That was very opportune for them to do that. One was just pulling out as we were driving here. So it's a hassle for everybody. The people who work are on and around Lake Champlain. It's difficult for the people who try to get to their homes, to the people who have summer businesses that they're trying to get open, summer camps at almost every place around the lake. So it's a difficult time, and our hearts go out to them, and we say our fervent prayers for people that they get where they're going safely, and urge people again, as you hear often on television, don't drive through deep water, especially late at night, unless you know exactly what you're doing, because you don't know where the roadway might be washed out. And that's what we're doing right here, is letting you know what the flood is like in 2011. Well, we are in the town of Beekmantown. We turned on the Point of Rush Road and went out past the state campsite, the state park. We headed down toward some of the old roads on the Cemetery Road. This is a little breezy Point Lane. But we stopped here because these people's camps are inundated. They're parked here, but I don't know how they got back to their camps. I don't know how they get into their garages. You look over on Calvin's shoulder, there's a park. There used to be the road that went right down through here. Turned into a nice little park, but look where the lake is. Right up to the road itself, which follows around the lake. We used to come out here a great deal many, many years ago for picnics and visiting our friends out here. And today, the lake is just gone over its banks, through the fields, through people's private property, and it's not stopping. I don't see many people out here working, trying to stave off the lake. Unlike the city, where you have so many apartments and buildings and businesses involved, people, many of them are summer residents, some are just seasonal residents, and others live here year-round, and all they can do is wait until the lake recedes a little bit and try to get back to normal. But I'm guessing, the Lord willing, that you'll never see this picture again out here around Point of Rush. Never.
Okay, here's that little park you saw talked about, Gordy.
And look at this going across both lanes of traffic. I don't think I'm going to be driving through there. Do you think? I don't think it would be a good idea, do you?
Well, it's not that deep that we can see through it, but you don't know what's washed out underneath, so I'd say no. I'm not going to jeopardize your truck and advise you to drive through there.
Well, there's just a terrible mess here on both sides. I didn't realize that the lake had encroached everything. Look, there's a camper down there. Look at the beautiful home down below there that's completely underwater, and this water is actually moving in a northerly direction, trying to get through here. I don't see any other vehicles down here, so that slow sign means stop for me. And there's a lot of homes up this way, a lot of camps, and on both sides of the road, and those people, as you can see, are in deep trouble right now.
I'm sure the people who live here and have camps here are going through this water, because again, it doesn't look that deep, but there's no sense in us getting out there in the middle of somewhere and wish we hadn't.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's a car waiting for us to get by, so I'm just gonna back up a little bit, get out of the way. All right?
Sure. All right, we have somebody running ahead of us here. If we stay a safe distance behind and watch if he falls through, we'll be the first ones to call for help for him. And you can also see how deep the water is, according to his vehicle. It looks like it's getting deeper as we go here, Gordy.
Yeah, it doesn't look too safe to me.
No, I think
I think
we'll just watch him.
watch
see
him
how
as
far-
he floats away.
Watch him get to the. Looks like it's dry once you get by that little tractor there. It's like you get to the other side. It's the road looks higher, so I think this is just a little small
There's people out here
area.
walking around. He's holding his. Why would he open his door when he's going through the water?
See, it's underneath his floorboard there, so he's okay.
Maybe we can.
All right, I want to go on record as saying I did not talk Gordy into driving through this here.
Some of these camps are a little drier than others.
Well, they get a couple of feet higher. That makes all the difference. At the lake at 103 feet right now. Record setting. There's a fellow cleaning off his lawn, getting some firewood probably.
Not very nice.
No, and this is a nice, very nice home right here that we're looking at. It's not some rough camp. This is a very, very nice home. It's the Drews, one of the Drew family.
Yeah, I've been out here many times, but never ever in conditions like this. Look at what they tried to move here to hold it back.
We're still in the town of Beekmantown.
Oh, that's right too. Yeah, sure. We're going to get out of the deep water any minute now.
It's tough for me to adjust the camera as I'm holding it with one hand and the microphone with the other.
I'll hold the
That's all right.
microphone. I can. Now, it's even though the water is up very close to this shore, it hasn't encroached any of these homes up in this direction. We got one very, very low spot that we just drove through, and that's the problem. The reason it was a little difficult for us to make that decision is because you don't know what the road surface is like underneath that water. I would never do it in nighttime. Here's Marine Village Cottages. They've been here. This has been a settlement out here for, I suppose, 50 years or more. And look at the messes that people are collecting on the sides of the road here, trying to get their camps ready for the summer, and some of them are not very good shape. The ones up closest to the road here look like they might be okay.
A little ways past Bucci Road here.
The docks and a lot of these. There's a new home to the left here, a beautiful log home that somebody's built, and the launch sites. The people can't get down on their whole lawn areas down there. Were right near here where we used to have picnics right across the road, and that just won't be happening anymore. It's a sad sight to see because we haven't seen anything like this in a very, very long time.
Looks like we're running into another low area ahead of us here.
Okay.
The Oliver Dickinson Homestead. This is one of those signs, the 7 signs that Addie Shields had put up in the year of the bicentennial.
Look at this down in here,
Yep.
see?
Yep. Back up a hair if you can, and I can
We certainly can.
get a shot of the shoreline. Okay. Some of them are faring pretty well, it looks like, but others,
Boy, it's close to the top though, Calvin. It's not expected to crest until...
Well, what can happen to these is it depends on the wind. You know, if
Absolutely.
a lot of these, if the wind doesn't hit, they're fine.
If you get that south wind really strong, then they're going to be waves lapping over all of those lawns.
There's a camp right in the water, Gordy.
Oh, it's so sad to see this, because you know how much people look forward to coming here and spending some time in the summer with their families. It says Lakeview Point Estate, but there are so many people, so many camps, so many places that are underwater now, and these people are just absolutely devastated as to what to do. And that's, you know, private road do not enter, as if we were going to drive in there today, right? Look straight ahead, way down through the woods. Boy, that one is really underwater, isn't it?
Yeah. We've moved on, and of course we were just probably I'd say maybe a mile from Isle of Mott right there where we were, Gordy.
And Isle of Mott, for those people who might know where it is or what it's all about, is almost totally inaccessible right now.
Well, it is an island right now. The only access to it is a bridge that they built from Alberg to Isle of Mott, and that bridge is impassable right now, so it is once again an island. It is called Isle of Mott because it's an island.
Well, we're going to go back through the deep water, get back to where Calvin's car is so we can continue our trek up the lake.
And if you hear Gordy say, "Oh shucks," it's because the road gave out.
We're going to go very slowly for sure. It looks like the road underneath is solid. They've done their best to stave off whatever they can. I know they've got, if they have any basements at all, their sump pumps are operating. There are people who do have vehicles here,
Including the tractors.
including tractors, and that would help. I see this guy working right there. It's just very difficult, and I'm not sure that the lake has crested up here yet. It wasn't expected to until sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. So, depending on where the wind is on a Saturday morning, on the 7th day of May 2011, life could be very difficult for these people. We're taking it really slow, as you can understand. We don't want to splash water up into the engine. The water, I would say, what would you say, 4 or 5 inches deep here, Calvin?
Oh yeah, yeah. Looking at that red truck that went ahead of us, that was at least I was up next to the running board, so it's it was a good 6 inches, I think.
I don't think you'd want to go use a low-profile car, do you?
No, that's one reason why we use this gas guzzler to get around today.
I knew the old truck would be good for something. So far, so good. We're going to pull out of it here in just a few minutes and move on up the lake.
And just to show you how close we were to Isle of Mott, there is Isle of Mott right there. So if you look at a map, this is about as close as New York State gets to Isle of Mott in this area. We're at Point of Rush in Beekman Town, and we're going to continue our trek north on this May 6th, 2011.
Well, we're on the Lakeshore Road heading north. Pointing south, but heading north with our vehicles as we go a little farther up the lake. We're almost up to the Reynolds Road. There's a guy with a wood pile that might have a little trouble getting to it for a little while. There's a brook that goes through here. Obviously, there's a lot of water on both sides of the lake, both sides of the road. The lake is up ahead of us. We're close to the Reynolds Road, pretty close to actually to Ingraham, and just south of the Chazy town line, I think, Calvin, right?
Yeah, so just where the lake shows up there, that's the town of Chazy, and we were kind of looking at one of the last area is if we went due east from here, we'd tie up with that Dickinson Road. And this, according to the map, is usually a swampy area, but it wouldn't classify as swamp right now. Look at the firewood that is drifted out into the field.
Of course, it's just horrible. And one thing I might point out here is that you won't see these pictures on any of the other media, I don't believe. This is an effort that Calvin and I decided to take that we hope it gives you a comprehensive, collective view of what's going on around Lake Champlain from south of Plattsburgh, a number of miles, all the way up almost to the border. And we're doing this on May 6th, 2011, just to give you an overall shot of what life is like for these people as they try to recover from the highest lake level in history. And I just looked at once again at my notes, and they don't expect the lake to crest until sometime tomorrow morning, which would be May 7th, and well over 103 feet. It's just absolutely incredible. Well, we're just a little bit north of the Reynolds Road. We are into the town of Chazy, about 2 miles from Ingraham. And you can see these people have lakefront property, even though they didn't even realize it, I'm sure, when they built their homes here. They are so far away and so damaged. There's a car there, so I can't imagine if people are in there. There are 2 vehicles there.
I would guess so. But the people there are there.
I
It looks
don't
like
know.
a year-round home.
I don't know how they can keep their places dry. The road, the sign says the road is closed, so there must be water over this road farther north, Calvin.
It said road flooded. I don't know if it said it was closed, so we'll see, I guess.
Sometimes that means one and the same, except if you have a big high truck like we do.
Yeah, I do want to point out that the sign, I was here last week on
yeah,
April
tell me about
27th,
that.
And that historical marker says that on April 26th, Benjamin Franklin camped near here in 1776 on his way to Montreal for a convention. So this was a very historic place 235 years ago.
And now it still is
Okay.
in the year 2011
For a different reason.
in May for very, very different reasons.
And again, we've got a view of Isle La Motte and Point of Rush to the right, and Isle La Motte to our left, straight across the lake here.
Monty's Bay Marina, just a little ways behind the camera. We just came through here, and you can see the lake encroaching onto the road within inches of going over the road with puddles on the other side. And the campsites are just north of here, right, Calvin?
That's correct. And this area here with the south wind has had some debris on the road in the past week or so.
You can tell just by looking at it now. And as I said before, it's expected to crest at well over 103 feet by tomorrow morning, which would be May 7th, 2011. So these people are far from out of the woods at this point in time. We're still on the Lakeshore Road, and we're just a little bit north of the Gilbert's Bay, you said, Gilbert Brook Marina. And the Monty Bay campsites are right here, as you can tell by this old Conestoga wagon. And it also is obvious to me, Calvin, that the water's been over the road here within the last few days, you think?
Yes, definitely. And again, last week with the high winds, it was worse than it is now, even though the water was lower. With the winds, it was the waves and a lot of debris coming on shore.
Fortunately, we are not forecast to have a great deal of rain over the next 5 days. And for once, I would be exceedingly pleased if that forecast did not come to fruition, because as you can tell, there are lots and lots of people hurting, especially around the lakeshore. And here we are heading northward toward in Chazy, toward Champlain and Rouse's Point, where we'll wrap up our program to chronicle the flooding of 2011 on Lake Champlain. But they have put a lot of crushed stone here. The big rock is shot rock, and that's what they put behind my house in the 1990s, where there's been rock in many places trying to stave off the flooding that has obviously occurred, it seems like every quarter mile there's a sign that says road flooded. But we've continued along, heading northward. We came to a place on the right-hand side here with about 3 rows of sandbags around it, and a truck loaded with sandbags out back, and it looked like the guy's got strong enough arms to put those sandbags in there wherever he might be. Look at him.
Those are going to be heavy and one at a time.
Oh, you know how it is.
If you're across the road from the lake, you think you're safe. And,
Yeah.
and
I have no idea if he was able to protect his house. Look at this house here. You know the garage is wet,
oh, definitely.
right? Because there you are. This water has been across this road probably within the last 4 or 5 days. Look at it on the left-hand side.
Oh, some of this was across there last week.
Really? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Did you come down this far last week?
Yeah, I started at the Reynolds Road and worked my way north. Did that on April 27th. And on the 29th, the lake had risen a foot higher, so all my footage was obsolete.
Well, it was...
There's a fellow with 2 sandbags.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Do you think if I hollered got a light, what would he say? Probably come and beat the living jeepers out of us.
Yeah.
Oh, poor guys. Just try, you try to save your property the best way you can.
That's a very nice home, too. And
it's a
really
beautiful home. Really I heard on the radios we drove north here that we were right. They were completely evacuating the last 100 people out of lakeside apartments. They're not allowing any through traffic down where we were able to go through this morning anymore because it's so dangerous down there. They were taking many of the people from Lakeside up to the North Country Shopping Center, where they want to then disperse them into evacuation places. I don't know if they'll all go to the crater where they're going to go, but it's interesting that we chose this day, May 6th, to do this chronicle of the floods of 2011 because there has been a lot of activity.
Well, it chose us because we'd actually chosen a couple of days.
Well, well, let's just say we ended up here. We do believe there's a master plan, and we were led here today. So if we led Moses into the wilderness, maybe we can get out of this mess along Lake Champlain and get some good pictures so people in the future can see what it was like. There's more people helping them carrying the sandbags. They got their heavy boots on, and it looks to me like they might need them, Calvin. Poor lady. We were coming by, and she's filling sandbags all by herself with a little coal scuttle, trying to stave off the lake. Is there hope that you can keep water out of your house?
I'm hoping, yes. If we get another southeast wind, I think that'll be it.
I can't believe that people are out in boats on Lake Champlain today.
I can't either.
With all the flotsam and jetsam on the, and logs under the water and boards, and they're not going slow either. That's the worst part of it. Who are you? I've seen you before.
Nancy Cheeseman.
How are you, Nancy?
Well, not very well today, but...
I mean, we can be honest on a day like today. You're tired. Oh, that's right, too. Sister of Robert, Mr. Robert. Mm-hmm. Our dear friend Robert. We see him very, very often, but we don't see you very often. You said you had some help the other day?
Yes, my neighbors and just passersby, people that I had never met before, came along and worked with me till we got until we ran out of sandbags. And then the fire department, Mike Cahoon, and has done a lot to help me, as well as Chris Trombley, and everyone's been very kind, very helpful to me.
Well, how much water's gotten inside, any?
Nothing inside is...
Oh, my goodness.
If you want to, you can come around on the south side, and you can see where all the damage has taken place.
Oh, I can believe it, and we'll take a walk, Nancy.
All right.
Start again here. Oh, Nancy, you said this was a railroad tie retaining wall?
Right.
And how much was this?
Well, right there. That's
there.
Where
There it was, right there.
That's what's been taken out, all the way down to, past that tree.
Oh, my goodness.
I think it was 2 weeks ago on a Saturday. I was just standing there watching the waves take all the shoreline away.
Well,
hedge and...
when you get a south wind, that's when it causes the problem. But
southeast wind is really...
Southeast wind is the worst. So have you been here for a long time, Nancy?
46 years.
Well, there you go. And as you and I said before the camera started, we've never seen anything like this before.
No.
We've seen other floods,
Yeah.
other ice jams, and lots of crazy things, but never the lake quite this high. You think we're seeing the end of it?
I hope so. Last evening, you could just about see it rise.
Could you almost watch it? And they said the official word from Burlington, the Weather Service, was that it will crest tomorrow morning.
I hope so.
But the fact is that we aren't supposed to have any rain for a while. So let the rest of the snow in the mountains melt.
Mm-hmm.
This poor lake doesn't know what to do with all the water.
I know.
9 inches of rain in the month of April alone. And
My
so-
heart breaks for the people down on the La Pointe Road and all
Oh,
along
sure.
toward Coopersville, toward or at the mouth of the river. They're just, I haven't been down there. I just can't go. I've seen enough misery.
It's devastating. Then you go in and put your feet up and relax with a cup of hot tea, and you turn on the television and see people in many other states who are being devastated by terrible tornadoes. It's a crazy world.
It is.
All we can do is send our supplications.
But I'm thankful I'm still able to be in my home, which other people aren't.
Yeah, other
They don't have a home to go
We were on North Margaret Street a couple hours ago, and they had school buses all lined up evacuating the people from the apartments along North Margaret Street.
Oh my.
Lakeside apartments, people have nothing to start with, and they're all being forced to evacuate their homes. So it's not an easy thing, is it? I bet you those railroad ties have been around here for a long, long time.
Yeah.
You can see where the tracks were laid on them. Who knows what century that might have been, right? Well, Nancy, I'm not going to bug you anymore, but at least you did get a 2-second rest when we stopped to see you anyway. Best of luck. We'll say a prayer for you, Nancy.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, we're at Shazy Landing now, still on the Lakeshore Road, not too far from Saxes Point, actually a little bit north of there. And we've seen problems in a lot of backyards and front yards. We've seen, as you can see now, they're doing some wood cutting here, and the wood is floating around. There is standing water around people's homes. I'm just hoping that most of these people do not have basements in here. Otherwise, they'd be seriously flooding. We're at another spot next to an historic marker where the road is actually covered with water. Not too deep, but it is running across there, and cars have been driving around. It's, you have a vision in your mind. Calvin came down through here the other day, so he knew roughly what it looked like. Was it this bad?
In places there was more debris because it was right after the period of strong southern winds.
Right.
And but no, obviously the water wasn't as high. The water wasn't standing on the road as it is right now. Some of it had been splashed across, and debris, a lot of debris on the side of the road. The people in the town highway department, and this is actually a county highway here, Lakeshore Road.
Yes.
They've done a good job of picking up the roadsides and getting that debris off, and you can't say enough for what their efforts have been so far. So
People have been great. For somebody who told me the other day, watch out for mosquitoes with all this water, guess what? We got them buzzing around us. We're good meat today.
they're more like black flies.
Black flies, mosquitoes, whatever they are.
They're not humming.
They're almost as big as a hummingbird, though.
All right, so we're gonna next pick up. We'll be pretty close to Champlain, town of Champlain, and we will be near the Shazy River on our next stop, I believe.
Okay.
Well, I lied, Gordy. I came
noticed.
by here. And,
I noticed. You can't drive a quarter mile without seeing something.
Well, my friend Bob Gravel, who's a good supporter of Hometown Cable, would say, "How come you didn't take the shot next to my place?" So.
Oh, boy,
next
look
to the
at it.
Gravel farm,
Look at-
across the road from the Gravel farm.
That's
here.
almost a swimming hole there, isn't it? Huh?
Yeah, and they got water on the other side of the road.
And there are gray skies. I didn't want to tell you that.
Gray skies are going to clear up, so
Okay.
put on a happy face,
Just
Gordy.
keep singing that song.
Now I think we'll take one last look here at the lake, and then we'll be picking this up near the Shazy River, which is a lot bigger than it usually is.
Oh boy. Well, I tell you what, we tried real hard and we filled up a whole tape. So that's our first program, part 1 of the Great Flood of 2011. And if you want to see part 2 in the Great Shazy River and the Little Shazy River, you're going to have to tune in next time, folks, because we got to put a brand new tape in and start all over again. Parts 1 and 2. Thank you for watching our little corner, and who knows where we're going to be next time if we don't make it to the Great Shazy River. Stay tuned, everybody, and have a great day.